going to go ahead and kick us off. So hello and welcome everyone to the Disability Employment Technical Assistance Center, or DETAC, Results and Innovation in Systems Excellence, or RISE, e-learning community. Today is the first session for the Beyond Limits, Bring Your Device Tech Training Learning Community, which is going to be facilitated by Able Opportunities Incorporated. Our presenters today are Jennifer White and Andrew McQuaid, and they are both from Able Opportunities and are going to be leading these sessions for the duration of this series. And we can go to the next slide. So first off, we're starting with a quick intro to this learning community and what the RISE e-learning communities are. And then we'll have our guest facilitators and speakers and subject matter experts, Jennifer and Andrew. I'll turn it over to them to lead us through the session. We'll have plenty of time for questions and answers, so feel free to chat in during the session if you have any questions. This is definitely interactive, so looking forward to hearing your questions and following along with you all. And then at the end, we'll just have some next steps. And Chairnet, we can go to the next slide. Great. So all of our e-learning community sessions are going to have CART closed captioning services, and that captioning is available if you go to the captioning feature in Zoom at the bottom of your Zoom window. During today's session, we also have an American Sign Language, or ASL, interpreter on the line. We will have these for the first session of each RISE community, but after that, we ask that you do reach out, let us know at least 3 days in advance of each future session to let us know if you'd like ASL interpretation going forward. And we can go, perfect, thanks, Chairnet. And I neglected to introduce myself, but my name is Megan Ketchel, and I am the project manager for the Disability Employment Technical Assistance Center, or DETAC. I am from the Lewin Group, and I'm located out of Boston, Massachusetts. And we also have my colleague, Chairnet Weldeeb, on the line as well. He is our DETAC project coordinator from TASH, and really is key to making all these RISE sessions go, and is here today running the Zoom for us. So please reach out to Chairnet and I if there's any questions about the Zoom logistics or how things are running today. Just briefly, I'll just kind of level set on some ground rules. We really hope that what you get out of this session is access to a team of awesome subject matter experts from our DETAC team, our community facilitators, and your peers. This is also a really safe environment for you all to talk through real life struggles and identify support and resolutions. What we expect from you as part of this community is just to have at least one team member or yourself from your organization at each session. If there's homework assignments, which won't be anything too involved, we know you're all very busy. If there are homework assignments, we ask that you do complete those. And then also that you're actively engaged in our sessions and participating and asking questions and trying things out as the facilitators are guiding us. And we can go to the next slide. And finally, I'll get ready to turn it over to Jennifer White, who is the CEO of Able Opportunities. She is one of our co-facilitators for this community, and she's also joined by Andrew McQuaid, who is a trainer with Able Opportunities as well. We're really excited to have both of them today. And so Jennifer, with that, I'll turn it over to you to get started.
Thank you so much, Megan, and Chairnet, and the interpreters, and the captioner, and everyone who's making this roll today. Sure appreciate it. I'm going to share my screen here. Excuse me. And then get back to the beginning and play. Okay, so I won't be able to see anything but my screen during this. So Andrew, when I'm on, if you wouldn't mind keeping an eye on the chat in case there's anything that needs to be flagged. I'm Jennifer White from Able Opportunities. I own a company, or I've owned this company since 1998, but I've been in the field since I was 13, and I'm 63. So what that means is a lot of mistakes, a lot of good lessons. And we're going to kick off this series with the lens of how we build person-driven tools and why we're building person-driven tools. We are going to be using this time to learn about technology, Today, we want to find out more about what technology you have, who's in the room. We're going to actually start with that, get a sense of who's here. Actually, I'm going to do the overview, and then we're going to get a sense of who's in the room so we know where you're from, what you're bringing, what your focus is going to be. We have some flexibility because we really want this to match what it is, the technology that you're really trying to onboard, learn about, implement in a larger scale, all of that. I spent the beginning of my career working with people who use behavior as communication, and they taught me a lot about what's not working in the tools that we typically use and how to build tools side by side with individuals. So a lot of this beginning lens is going to start there. Before I launch into my whole slide deck here, I'm going to take a moment to introduce Andrew McQuaid, who I have the great fortune of working with, as somebody who's been in the field for a long time. And I'm sure the same for all of you. You meet someone who resonates on that same understanding about where we are and where we want to go. And Andrew was one of those people in my life. It's been fabulous to start working together and be building some of these newer tools and presenting together. So I just want to thank Andrew for being here. You're going to hear from him soon. All right. Okay, does anyone have anything that you need to talk about before I move into the deck? Is everyone seeing the interpreter, getting the caption that you need? I'm also, just to note, I'm a white woman with bobbed dark hair that's getting mostly gray now, wearing glasses in a gray sweater and some nice silver shaded pearls. Okay, ready? Here we go. I heard something there. Okay, so we start with this lens of how we develop beliefs. And we do this because you'd think that implementing technology would be just the device itself, but it's not. We kind of have to take a look at why we get stuck in implementing technology. When iPads were invented, I thought it was going to just change the world, and we got to put some of our lower tech tools into higher technology that was mobile and so exciting. And it's been a real lesson in where we are in our system and our system structures into why we don't actually flow with it very easily. So part of it is this lesson for me, how we develop our beliefs, how we stick with them. The world's flat. No, it's not. You won't be tested on these names. So, there's some old Greek astronomers, Ptolemy, who thought the Earth was the center of the universe and the sun was revolving with the planets outside of us. And then his colleague Copernicus, who said, no, we're just one of those planets. The sun is actually the center. And of course, he got kicked out of the community by the church and his colleagues. So what happens? How do we start to make these turns? Kind of in the Age of Enlightenment is the first time we started to say, oh, the lightning outside isn't happening because it was mean to Andrew. Before that, we thought we were causing everything, right? All of it is about I'm being punished, I'm being rewarded. And then the Age of Enlightenment, we started to get some, anthropomorphism. I see anthropomorphism is we think we are the center of all that is known and unknown. And we started to get some perspective about that. That perspective included understanding how we project subjective properties onto nature. So the lightning's happening because of my behavior. That perpetuates myth. And we're going to talk about how this applies to us. You might be wondering, what is she talking about? I came here to learn about technology. We are going to get there. This projection of subjective properties onto the nature of others is what we're going to talk about and how it has perpetuated some myth in our field. We know so much, we know so little, which is a good thing. It means that we can learn how to pay attention. I was working in a classroom with students on the spectrum before we had the word spectrum connected to autism. So people with a lot of diagnoses of emotional ED and BD, behavior disorders, emotional disorders. And then I went back to school when it was required to have your master's to teach, and I took a sign language class, and I happened to be in a program where it was embedded in the deafblind community. So I was learning how to sign, at the same time I was learning how to tactily sign. And what happened is all the kids, as I was hanging out in the deafblind community signing, all the students in my classroom were getting better. Of course, it wasn't them that was changing. I was getting more succinct in my language, and I was organizing myself so that tactily I made more sense to people. There's a reason for it, and that's a whole nother training around the brain and how it works and the visual nerve, et cetera. But as far as autism, people on the spectrum and processing needs. But for me, it was a big wake-up call because I had been working in the field since volunteering at 13 years old in developmental centers with my dad, to my first job at the ARC of Bucks County in residential services, to working in schools, to working in employment settings. All of this time, I didn't understand how the right accommodation can change the world and how far we can be from the right accommodation. So this idea of curiosity rather than conviction became very important. Early in my career, I would be called into different settings because someone was struggling with a lot of behavior and they needed some communication structure. And oftentimes I would go in and bring some of the tools we had invented, and people would say, "Oh my gosh, this looks like magic. He never does that for us." And when I was young and stupid, I thought, gosh, I'm really good at my job. And then, of course, it didn't take too long to see, wow, the right accommodation is so far away from you that it looks like magic when it shows up. That's a tragedy. So how do I start understanding that how I project onto other people, how I process when I'm inventing supports for them? And how do I stay curious enough to look at my own habits? I think, I've been around since the institutions were the option for people. And I've seen us close the institutions, but we haven't changed a lot of the problems that were institutionalized. Some of the strategies we use for breaking down tools, how we teach, what we measure, et cetera. If you could just put your hand up in your little box there and say to answer this question, how many of you are social justice workers? You could put a little tag on there yeah, there you go. Good, Andrew. Not seeing a whole lot of, beautiful. Okay, so a couple of people. Now, I've been asking this question for, 30 years, and there were no hands up for a very long time. And then over time, more and more people are starting to raise their hand around this. I get a lot of, we don't have anything to do with social justice. My job is working with this person. But here's the definition of that when people ask me what I do for a living, I say I level the playing field for people with disabilities to have the same rights and opportunities as everyone else. And almost everybody agrees with that description of what we're doing in our jobs in this field. Well, that happens to be the same definition of social justice, to level the playing field for people in marginalized groups to have the same rights and opportunities as everyone else. And it so happens that people with disabilities are a marginalized group of people. When you look at the history of oppression, on the left-hand side of this screen here, there's a book by Leticia Nieto from Washington State here. She wrote a book called Beyond Inclusion, Beyond Empowerment. It's a curriculum book. It's $60. I always recommend that people buy it. The tagline for the book is Strategies to Free Us All. It helps people come together in discussion about opposing views and how, when you talk about privilege, what does that mean? It's a book about that. In it, she identifies disability as a group of marginalized people. In fact, that's how I came upon this book, when we were struggling in a group where there was not a lot of representation by the deaf adults working in this crew. And we all started to figure out, try to figure out how to resolve some of these conversations, and hired some of their therapists and authors to come work with us. So very rich experience. That lens of understanding social justice helped me to start to change what I was looking at. In our field, our structures are built on a good relationship. I, Jennifer White, have been around for a long time. I've worked with a lot of people with a variety of communication strategies, a variety of learning styles. And I meet you and we get to know each other and we figure some things out and it feels good. It's working well. Now, here's where the structural problems begin. This is based in my relationship with you. I leave and you're going to work with Andrew now. He's wonderful, but you're going to have to start all over again with him because we're not building structures that you are carrying with you between people, between settings, etc. So we're going to look by the end of our time together here at some implementation tools to address some of the systemic barriers that stop us from having a good idea to implementing the change. And I put this in the terms of social justice as a tool to help us understand why that's so important. All of the women in the room, how long have we been talking about earning the same dollar as the male counterpart in a position exactly like ours? Like I said, I'm 63. We've been talking about it my whole life. As soon as I could understand the topic, I heard conversations about it. Now, when you know that there's a problem and you know it needs to be addressed, why doesn't it change immediately? And these are the systemic structures. So we're going to be talking about how to write goals in people's annual plans, how to train staff, evaluate staff, how to embed it, more of an ethos of curiosity in the company itself while you're making some of these turns, how to support your staff, how to write goals for the company, etc., so that there's some structured ways to move forward. Like I said, come from deafblindness, and so this quote always really struck me when we're engaging people to join us in this movement. The doctor who worked with Helen Keller said to Annie Sullivan, her teacher, if a house collapsed in on a child, all of us would come running with pitchforks and shovels. No one would stop digging until the child was found. And that's our task here, to keep digging until we find the child. And he was talking about Helen Keller. I think that's what we do in our work. Our job is to keep using the pitchforks and shovels to look under the rubble of marginalization, systemic marginalization, the oppression, the structures that are stopping people from gaining higher skills. And that's kind of our mission here at Able Opportunities. So in building that ethos of curiosity, there's two big lessons we've learned. One is I have to keep talking about the mistakes I'm making, right? We all have to, from top down to bottom up, share how we keep getting in the way. Not intentionally. We've all internalized ableism, whether we wanted to or not. And that's just the truth of a structure in a society when that's all you've ever seen. It doesn't have anything to do with our hearts. It's just training. And so we want to stay fascinated to keep finding those moments where my training has me automatically moving in a specific direction. Now we're going to start applying these to technology quickly, but here's some lessons that I've learned from my own aha moments. Remember the intro when I said the projection of subjective properties onto others perpetuates myth. If you look at every evaluation tool, bar none, for communication for people with disabilities, every single one of them is based in English. Aside from what Gallaudet puts out around the evaluation of ASL for deaf children, which took until 40 years ago to even get the first draft. So it's really been English solid for hundreds of years. But even the visual tools, the psychology tests and the other intelligence tests that we use, where we use pictures, are graded in the structure of English. Now, for much of our population that doesn't have a full command of English, this means I'm grading them on something that they don't have access to. So if I was working with a child in a wheelchair, do we measure the mobility based on their performance when they're standing? Or, do we measure their capacity to get up the stairs? It's just a shift of lens. Go ahead and we've got somebody trying to be admitted and I can't let them in because my screen is full. So if somebody could do that, please. Joe is waiting to join us. Here are some of my aha moments. this is what deafblindness taught me. Coming in to put my hand on top of somebody else's to demonstrate how to do something. So say, for example, here's a new iPad. Often what we're doing to train people is taking their hands and showing them how to do things. What this is doing is engaging the startle reflex, whether we want it to or not. Homunculus is a drawing from an OT, an occupational therapist, who said, here's where the sensory weight lives on the body. You know, when you see a baby on its back playing with a toy and it's got it in its mouth, its hands, and its feet, that's because those three areas are where you're getting the most input through your sensory system. That also means that those are the three most sensitive areas to touch, which means that when I touch them internally, doesn't mean I'm jumping, startling. It means internally, I'm trying to figure out what you want from me and what the expectation is. And it kind of takes up all of my attention to do that. So number one, the aha moment is compliance to alliance, where I'm creating strategies and tools where clients lead, but also to understand this hand under hand methodology instead of hand over hand in order to make these shifts. For me to shift my relationship with someone, and this becomes very important around integration of technology because people have used technology and been managed on technology for much of their education, possibly. So if I bring in a new tool and they throw it, oftentimes the team will say, well, he didn't like that, he tore it down, or he threw that out, or he didn't want to use it. So two things we want to keep in mind here, this hand under hand strategy, and also this model, and invite kind of lens that we use for person-driven training, because we all learn through immersion. And if it's around us and there's no pressure on you to do it, but you start to see how it can benefit you, then you can come forward at your own pace. Here's another aha moment. Cueing, you know, as we taught this technology and we're having these great successes, but then integrating it to the whole company or sustaining or scaling the tools became a barrier everywhere we went. We started to get a little smarter about, okay, people need to understand why this is so important, and we're mostly unaware of how embedded in cueing we are. So we create, this was our original tally, was me with my, Notability app on my iPad taking cues. And then we started to categorize them. But this particular view here was a person in a job for an hour and 15 minutes, supporting somebody in a job for an hour and 15 minutes. And he was highly involved, needed a lot of support. And I asked them at the end of the hour and 15 minutes, how often do you think you're cueing him? And they said, I know, I'm working on getting better at it. I'm doing it at least 10 to 12 times. And she had cued him 454 times. We have embedded this habit that we're mostly unaware of. Nowadays, we're actually filming it side by side. I'll have a partner. The person will be filming as I'm tallying the cues. We're watching someone teach, support, how to cook, how to dress, anything in the home, community, or work settings. We tally it up, and on the bottom we're writing teaching as well. Of course, there are teaching moments where you're side-by-side modeling, you're giving instructions, you're answering questions. None of those are included, but I mean, we tally it down there, but we're tallying all the rest of this. And we film it because people don't believe us when you say, we are cueing 40 times more often than we think we are. 40 times is the average. And we've got, 5 years, 10 years of looking at it, 5 years of concrete data. I didn't even believe it the first time I wrote it down. So it took us a couple of years to actually start really tallying it, really paying attention, and have other people use the same tools with the film and get the same data. So with this cue dependency, this person-driven piece is something, this is what we want to talk about to get ready for our lessons together, is to take a look at the curiosity it's going to take us to see that we have some habits that we've internalized, because most of the tools are built for our brains, not the person with a disability, especially an intellectual developmental disability. And in order to change those habits, it's not going to be because I told you don't to reach your hand on top of somebody's again. We're going to do hand under hand. Every cell in your body is going to have training around this habit. And as Mark Twain said, a habit cannot be tossed out a window. It must be coaxed down the stairs a step at a time. So this culture of curiosity and this ethos of support and attention to these habits is something to develop for a team, because to build the habit, you have to, you have to be aware of how often it's happening. So when we're talking about elevating into these person-driven kind of strategies, we use low and high-tech tools that allow us to do that. We're going to cover briefly some of these low-tech tools because the structures, the foundational structures, are the same structures we bring to high-tech tools. There are on this, there's a slide, there's a link on the slide that you can use to go to our website for a bunch of free materials to learn more about universal design in your structures of training, to train people. You know, all people are born with the visual brain, and the visual brain is the basis of universal design. Fully blind people still use the visual brain because what you see is based on the structure of matter. So it's the same as what you touch. There are only 3 languages in the world that didn't follow that structure. English is one of them. Bummer. English, Chinese, and Greek. So we have to kind of rethink how we're looking at materials, and you can find some free teaching there that helps strengthen the visuals and the organization of what you're doing. We started with cameras and printers back before we had smart screens, and we started to understand more and more about, again, people have been managed for much of their life and cued for much of their life. So we bring these tools in, we model it, we offer it, we support them to learn how to do it. We make little sheet by sheet visuals of how to keep doing it on their own. We do things like telling stories across environments, or making books, or here's the attendance sheet for who's going to be in my house today. Here's the staff attendance for who I can expect to show up in my own home. Or I can order my own coffee because I've taken a photo of it myself, labeled it, I can give it to the barista, she can get it for me regardless of my communication. This shift of more direct connection instead of going through the support person has some profound effects. So we definitely want to keep using those tools as we move into high tech. Sharing stories across environments is a very big deal because many of the people we support have staff coming in and out. What happened earlier today might not translate unless staff tell it, but it's certainly not coming from me as often. So we capture short video clips, photos, etc. And here's why we started doing it. This is Reed Zimmer. He's my muse for many of the inventions we're going to talk about here, because I knew him for a year before I knew he rode horses, and that his dad calls him Hoss. Now, I knew him well. I'd met with the family. We'd had a person-centered plan, and none of this ever came up. But once we started bringing pictures in to share stories about what we were doing and let the family in on it, they started sending him with pictures, and we saw somebody that we didn't even know this about him. Not only that, but the staff started seeing us doing that and started bringing pictures to him as well. So all those years of focusing on how to build natural supports and Reed's ability to tell his own stories, of course, did the trick. So communication and money are 2 of the things that are typically the challenge for people with intellectual developmental disabilities, simply because the system hasn't given them much opportunity to learn much about a variety of ways using a variety of tools to access this information. So you'll see in the pictures, the storytelling, Reed, those pictures of Reed saying, oh, here I went horseback riding, I blah, blah, blah. He's in the photo. But every tool that we make is made from his point of view. He's not in the photos about work or the tasks that he needs to complete. So we simply used the camera and printer with the boss, captured all of the tasks, and he would when he finished something, he would put it on the Velcro next to it. They actually still have this system up so that therapists know which areas have been cleaned, although he got a new job years ago. So concrete visual strategies and getting, again, moving beyond how I do it to accommodate it for a brain that's organizing different than mine. We find cooking as an excellent way to, even if someone's in employment services, start teaching how to capture and track their own sequence of things. You don't have to know how to measure something. We use color-coded measuring cups. We have a whole series on low-tech tools that got us to some of these high-tech things, but we can go into that if you've got questions on it. And then also very concrete models of money. I can't tell you how often people argue with me that money is not important and that the person doesn't care about money. And I understand that, but that's mostly because things are taken care of for them. And so how to get concrete models of money, even for people who we believe won't be able to connect the dots. This direct connection to earning and spending changes motivation more than anything else in work. Period. So we're going to look at some high-tech ways to do that. This is Trep. He was deemed unemployable by 6 agencies before we met him, and connecting him to money changed his self-control around his own behaviors. It helped him understand that he was going to earn something and buy something at the end of every shift. We moved into high tech for sequencing the tasks, and but we needed to keep the money jig in place because he needed that concrete money in the hands, buying something to make it work. But he only knew 2 signs when we met him, and he added 2 signs to his vocabulary over the years that we worked with him. One, he would get up every morning and look at his staff and sign work and say work. To find out if it was a work day. And then he would get to work and he'd set up the space and he'd point to the coach and say, money? So the good news is these tools, these structures taught us, by the time we get to high-tech tools, the kinds of issues that we want to bring into building tools that are actually made for the individual. Now, we know that a lot of people with intellectual developmental disabilities don't have their hands on what we call off-the-shelf technology for lots of reasons. People are worried about the expense. People are worried that they're not going to know how to use it. They're going to break it. All kinds of reasoning has come into this. But when you think about the profound shift it has made in all of our lives, and the profound capacity for accommodation with these tools, you are, I'm sure, riding the wave of making the change to get this into people's hands. And we're seeing that around the country, to very beautiful, big stories of independence and surprises about what people actually can access and how people are using their technology, et cetera. We also note that we have started with iPads simply because they're made for the visual brain. I don't think Steve Jobs would have described himself that way, but he actually operates from that, or did operate from that lens. So and what that means is essentially, it used to be on an iPad, you would touch something and everything that you could do to that one thing would come forward, as opposed to Microsoft or Android, where if I touch something, I then that brings me to a menu, and then I have to choose something else or find something else, or I might have 3 more steps, which again wipes out, 70% of the people that I work with, or a portion of the people that I work with. So we went with iPads for a long time. We're making Android and using Android tools now too. So just note that we're going to be iPad heavy when we're talking about our teaching tools and when you see the tools that we have. We look at how do we evaluate people's use of technology, and we start by looking at how are we using technology, and then how do people access this same information. That's our goal here. We have some basic things that come on the phone that, we all have different technology preferences and apps that we love. And we find that most people average out at 10 apps that they use regularly. You might have lots more on your phone, but 5 to 10 apps that you use daily and regularly. And some of those apps are built into the device already. you're going to see a lot of the tools that we are going to share with you are based in photo and film because it's such a diverse medium. We support people to make self-advocacy films so that they can educate their staff about who they are and what they like, their coworkers, etc. Video resumes, so an employer can see their own potential employee instead of talking to me about person. Video brochures and customer film files around if a person is not involved in or able to be involved in the filmmaking, that there are customer film files. Again, when you're training in a new position and the turnover is very high in our field, that paperwork doesn't always stick. It's very hard to retain how much important information there is. Video helps with retention and also referencing. So just to note that it's a tool we use a lot. During quarantine, we had customers take photos of what happened every day and then put together little film compilations. It was profound. We had we had an amazing time during COVID. Whenever not an amazing time because of all of the death and illness, of course, but we got to stay connected in very meaningful ways, even though we weren't seeing each other in person. And in fact, the customers that we support and our staff were used a lot to help other companies move into technology because we already had it in place. Most of the customers we serve are already masters at it and train other people on the tools. Video resumes, employers say, consistently that they'd rather have a video resume because they can actually see someone's work skill. It also connects to people. That's Jesse and his future employer. He got hired after this interview. After she said to him, "Hey, I went to this high school." Notability and other note-taking apps are also very strong tools. It's also a tool that I use when I'm evaluating somebody's potential to, how do they use their finger? Do they need a stylus? Do they know the different ways to touch a screen? We always start with what's motivating. So we make crazy fun stuff simply because it's easier to learn when you're having fun. We use video and FaceTime early on before we had really cool mapping apps to show, here's, if my family's worried about me being on the city bus, I can FaceTime them, show my face and the landmark and hang up and do that at the 6 points on the route home. And it helped a lot of families allow their adult children on the city systems. And then we moved into mapping, and we're going to get into this more later, but we got more into mapping using Google Earth because it's so cool to see that satellite view and then come to the close view and then pulling out maps or screenshotting maps and drawing on them and creating routes as a way to orient to your community. We invented an app called Work Autonomy that allows people to capture, track, and report to their boss about work production. We'll talk more about it later on, but just to note, we're going to be covering some of this. And then we put budgeting sheets together. We've got the money jig like TREP used, but also higher level tools that allow people to connect the dots between earning and spending and saving to great success. People are very grateful about having their hands on money and understanding more about it. And again, our job is to create very visual, concrete tools that allow them to do so. These are some of the apps we're going to cover when we get to the app portion of our show, which is in a couple of weeks, including some safety apps. And I'm going to cover a little bit about this now, but just to note that we also have a lot of material on how we have shifted, from accommodating our first customer to our second customer, and then some employer information. We typically, as a field, as people with disabilities, families, teachers, believe that the employer's attitude or lack of awareness is the number one reason people with IDD don't get employed. But the same data tells us something different from employers. They say, I want to do it, I don't have the time or the money, which means we gave them a capacity model. It's a special project instead of pairing with how they do business. And so we have tech, again, to address all of these things. Like we have a cost analysis sheet. So we're using math to break the myth of why you should employ someone. But the second reason for employers is the bad experience with the employment agency. And this becomes really a big deal because of the inconsistency in our field. So again, we've got tools to help stabilize that. I'm going to shift to pull out of this here real quick. There you go, because we're going to move through the rest of these. Oh, nope, I just do have 2 more slides and then we're going to move on. We also take a look at this shift when we're looking at technology in these places where we understand someone was born with a disability. Most of the time, parents haven't planned on that. Sometimes they have, but not always, but not mostly. They go to school and learn new tools. And the teacher is the family has re-identified goals. The teacher is helping support reaching those goals. They go to work and they have a coach who looks and can act like the teacher and paraprofessional and the parents. So a lot of the tools we're going to talk about and a lot of the training we're going to talk about to acquire technology and implement technology is helping make that shift to a higher level of independence through person-driven structures and tools. We also have some very business-minded practices based on a project we have with what used to be Harrison Medical Center, is now St. Michael's Hospital. And again, we use structures and apps and technology that really help with the basis of how to stay successful. And like I said, cost analysis, we have a cost analysis template that we use too that helps show them what they're paying currently and what they could do by with a customized position by pulling tasks off of cross-trained staff. So there is the kind of why we're moving into what we're moving into, our lens about the social justice piece and what it actually takes to make those changes, some of the habits we've embedded in being good people doing our job for a long time. So as we meet every one of these sessions, we're going to have some conversations about why we're building these structures along the way. Like Andrew's going to step in momentarily and talk to you about how we help people set up technology in the first place. And we make a how-to document and film or depending on who the person is and what they need, so that they have a reference tool that they can continue to go back to. And of course, with great humor and hindsight, I realized we made these tools for people with IDD. We find that staff and families need them the most because we need fluency with technology and models to help teach it. So that's how we're using those. So any questions before we move on, just about the lens, the social justice piece? We're going to keep working on getting out of the way, and we want to build structures and tools to get tools in people's hands. Anybody have a comment or thought or question before we move on? In the Northwest here, it's right after lunch. Anybody else? Everybody sleep? Are you asleep at your desk? All right, Andrew, we're going to pull you in. I'm going to introduce Andrew here, and we're going to present a different slide deck here. Andrew's going to walk you through one of these how-to documents that I was just talking about.
Before you guys start, I'm sorry, it took me a second to unmute, but I wanted to just say that I am very thankful for this workshop. I am a person with a developmental disability myself that has worked with others with developmental varying levels. So I appreciate this forum. And I was trying to comment on what you said about how when technology or something is created from one sector, it usually winds up being valuable to others. And I think that that's a great premise to go from. I'm also, as a person who is 40 plus years old, thankful for you and individuals like yourself that continue to find ways to bring technology and innovation to create independence. So thank you very much.
Jamie, I just can't thank you enough for that comment, because of course the real solution to this is people with lived experience teaching people with lived experience. And I can tell you, I developed an app, but I didn't even realize what it could do until people with disabilities taught me what it could do. When we have new staff, Eric Erickson teaches them about the Work Autonomy app because he uses it every day. I have a friend and colleague, Michael Rogers, who learned how to read when he was 40 years old. And his teacher called me and said, hey, you got to meet this guy. He's, learning to read at 40, put him at a, second grade level, move into third. And really, it doesn't help you with everyday life. So she asked me if there was technology that could help. And we got Michael, I gave him an iPad mini and taught him how to use Siri and a screen reader and a couple of other apps. And this was when he was 40 and he's 50 now. He will still call me and say, thank you so much for teaching me how to use this tool. It's letting me, and he'll list features I've never even heard of, because he has mastered this thing in ways that I don't have to use every day. So he knows more about it than I do. He knows how to teach it better than I do. So Jamie, I hope you're teaching technology, and if you're not, call me, because we want to talk. we also have a project up and coming that for people to build their own apps, because you know what you need better than I do. So all kinds of cool places to move to in the future. The time has come, and I'm really glad to meet you. Thanks for that comment. Anybody else? All right. I am going to pull up the slide deck for Andrew, and Andrew, you can just just say slide, and I'll move into the next one.
Perfect.
And I gave you a quick, brief intro to Andrew, and he's going to give you another intro that is more thorough about who he is. Go ahead, Andrew.
Hi, everyone. My name is Andrew McQuaid. I'm coming from you live in Rhode Island, up here in New England. I came into the field first and foremost as a sibling, the brother to Emily and Daniel, and you will likely hear me reference them over the coming months together. And then started sort of professionally in the field as a direct support professional. But have continued on and have served in senior roles, both for our own state division of developmental disabilities, as well as with a local community provider and our state's University Center for Excellence on Developmental Disabilities, which here in Rhode Island is the Sherlock Center. And thrilled to have the opportunity to continue to work with Jennifer, and excited to be able to join you all today. So as we shift into the how-to, I want you to just imagine yourselves for a second, and I want you to think about how it feels to learn a new piece of technology. Now, some of you have signed up for this. So for some of you, that may mean that you get really energized and excited by a new piece of technology. But we probably also know a colleague or a friend who, at the sight of new technology, anxious, pure anxiety, the chest gets tight, right? What's true for both the person who's really energized and excited and the person who gets really anxious is a shared feeling of frustration. At some point in learning a new piece of tech, we all get to that point of frustration. Who among us have either thrown a piece of technology or certainly have felt the urge to throw a new piece of tech? And so then what do? Well, we go to what are the available resources to us. And if you're like me, I love YouTube. I go online, I check out a video, and it's sort of like watching someone ice skating. It looks really simple. And then as soon as I attempt to get on the ice, I'm reminded very quickly that ice skating is not nearly as simple as I'd like it to be. And so either the video's going too quickly or it's just not translating in a way that's working for me. And this is the shift that Jennifer's talking about. How do we create tools that work for me? And so the other thing is that resources get dated. And a how-to also affords us the opportunity to make sure that we are addressing what folks are wanting, but also are able to update it in a way so that it stays current and relevant. So we're going to show you an example, or I'm going to show you an example of that, a tool that Jennifer has built, and I've had the opportunity to update as well, this iPad user's how-to. And what I want you to see is both, yes, what's happening in it. And actually, if you've got your iPad handy, I'm going to ask you actually get that iPad out and let's sort of walk alongside each other and go through this together. And for those of you who don't have an iPad, I also want you to be observing sort of what it is that we're doing, the strategies that we're using, so that you yourself could be thinking about, if I were to build a how-to, how would I incorporate the strategies that we're utilizing? So Jennifer, can we go to the next slide? And is there anything else you'd like to add before we get into it? Awesome. Thank you, Jennifer. You'll notice as we go through these slides that these are really some of the most, these are sort of what I would say is a basic setup. It's what many or most people are going to want to utilize or know about in using, in this example, an iPad. And there's something that Jennifer said to me a long time ago that I really appreciated. She said, you know, something may be common sense. It's not always common. And so the other opportunity that a how-to creates is, while many of these are basic, you may be finding yourself looking at some of these features and saying, oh, I didn't know about that, or that's new to me. So again, a how-to provides that space to bring in very specific things that you think either a direct support professional or others in your organization or an individual would want to know. So in this, we start really, really general. And so we're looking at just the general settings of an iPad. How do I find out what my iPad is? How do I update software? Because as we know, and any tool, we're consistently getting pushed new software to update. How do I do that? How do I even set up some really basic things like the date and time or the keyboard? Another thing that we find with iPads is that we're wanting to add new apps or putting on new content. Jennifer talked about film, we're putting different film. And so it's then important for us to be able to know, all right, how much of my iPad storage am I using? Or if you are building, let's say you're bringing in new technology for an organization and you're needing to keep track of all of these, let's say, new iPads, then you're going to want to know what's the serial number, and what's a way that I can be keeping track. So all of these are in the general settings. Right when you first open your iPad's general settings, you already have a wealth of tools. And as you notice in our how-to, we don't give an exhaustive list, right? We don't tell you literally every single thing. We're showing you, okay, what are the key things that we think it's helpful for you to be aware of? Jennifer, anything before we go to the next slide?
Yeah, I'm just going to add that we also have film, how-to films on setting up an iPad, and we're going to make those available to you as well. Because some people process either easier with film, some people process with, taking as much time as they need to look at one page at a time. We're going to kind of clip through this quickly because we're not going to teach this to you, but give it to you to make sure that your iPad is up and running for the next time we meet, when we're going to teach you how to get right into film. Because we want to make sure we have time for introductions and stuff. And Andrew, can you believe it? It's already 5 minutes to the top of the hour. So I want to show that on the left-hand side is the main, if you're thinking about a filing cabinet, you open the drawer, that's the left-hand side, the name of the main areas. And then once you've chosen something, like general in this picture is blue, shows you it's been selected, then it opens up the file until it shows you all the things that are inside there. So even that structure can really throw people. All right, Andrew, I'm gonna, you tell me what pace you're ready to move at, and we'll just show some examples of this how-to walk through and go like that.
Perfect. So maybe this shows how it is that you're able to reset an iPad. This is particularly helpful if it's transitioning between one person and another person. Next slide. Ooh, all right. I get excited about some of these. So this is showing how it is that you're actually able to track your amount of screen time, but not just seeing, and you'll see in the picture, you can actually see how many hours you're using your iPad, and including specific apps. But this actually also allows you to create things like downtime, which actually sets times when you only will have access to placing phone calls or apps that you specifically decide are going to be available during during downtime. This is also where you can do things like content and privacy restrictions, so that your iPad is really taking the lead in ensuring that certain adult material isn't getting to the user of the iPad.
Or you're not using entertainment during work hours. That's the place where you set those settings.
Our next is the different accessibility features that are available on an iPad, and really on most products. We actually share a link, a former DETAC training that I participated in that Jennifer facilitated. We actually spent the better portion of one session just all researching together the different accessibility features. And so I encourage you to do something similar, because within each one of these, there are really interesting and cool tools that help make the iPad or the piece of technology more accessible. We also, as you can see, share, again, those really common things that for some individuals, you may use the Wi-Fi that one time when you're setting it initially up. But then as soon as something happens, right, because you aren't using Wi-Fi maybe as frequently, someone may actually forget how it is that they do set up the Wi-Fi on an iPad. And so often these how-tos are also creating a reference document of the, oh, I haven't needed to do that in a while, but I know I can go back to my how-to. How to set up things like your Bluetooth, so that you can use things like your AirPods or external headphones or an external keyboard. Jennifer referenced the printer as part of the low-tech strategies, how you can access a printer to your iPad, putting your wallpaper up, being mindful that those really cool wallpapers that move and change actually also drain a lot of your battery. So something to keep in mind. Next slide. How to set up, there's a little bit of a lag on my end. Sorry, Jennifer. How to set up your passcode and your Face ID. Your Face ID actually then being a tool that you can use so that you're not manually always entering in a passcode, but you're using your Face ID to in replacement of a passcode to be able to make purchases, or even just as basic as unlocking the device. I'm going to turn it over to Jennifer for a second to talk about privacy settings and location services, because there's actually an entirely separate presentation that Able Opportunities gives specific to that too.
Yeah, I'm going to come off I'm going to leave it in this format for just a second to say, there's more to this PowerPoint that you can go through on your own. Because we really want to make sure, we've started by saying, okay, here's our lens. Here are the kind of tools we want to make sure you know how to build, regardless of the tech that you are using, so that everyone can access how to do it. There's some very important features like privacy, but we don't know who you are yet. So we want to get time with you and get a sense of what your skills are on technology, what kind of tech you're using, and give you a little bit more info about what we're going to cover. So actually, I'm going to hold off on the location setting until next week, or not next week, next time. If that's okay, I'm going to come off screen. I'm going to come off the share right now, and let's get it. Let's start talking as a group. Does that sound good? We have a lot of exciting things that we want to share with you all, but we want to find out where you are, who you are, so that we can really target your goals during this time together. So we're going to ask you to come on screen if you would, if you'd be willing to do that, because we're just going to have a chat here. Thank you so much for doing it. We're really excited that you're joining us. This idea of bringing everybody along to use the tech and implementation strategies that we're finding really work are really exciting. All righty, Andrew, would you mind taking notes on each individual? Okay,
Not at
so
all.
first and foremost, I'm going to have every single one of you send me an email so that we have your correct email address. What we find is that somebody else might have registered someone. So when we're sending out materials, it doesn't get to the right person. So if you'll send two things in this email, you're just going to send me the email so I have your address. And I want you to write down right now, or excuse me, write just one quick line about your biggest goal for tech right now. You would send an email. It's to jennifer@ableops.com. And that is to JENNIFER @ableops, which is 8 letters, the word able, ABLE, and then 4 more letters like octopus, Paul, Sam.com, ableops.com. Usually it's right on the PowerPoint, so I can pull that back up actually on something else.
And I also put it in the chat if that's helpful.
It's not, there isn't a group. Oh, there's a meeting group chat. Yes, would you please? Thank you. I didn't see the group piece. So Andrew will also put it in there. So Jennifer@ableops.com. You're going to send me an email with your biggest tech goal right now. All right, so let's find out who's in the room. We'd like you to introduce yourself, what your role is, what the company is, of course, that you work in, your agency. And then we're going to ask specific questions after you do your little intro about your skill and your goals. So we'll have a little conversation with each of you about that. So if you wouldn't mind, actually, I can't quite. Everybody's name is going to change around. Jamie, would you start with us since I know your name already?
Sure, I absolutely will. So my name is Jamie Jr. I am the advocacy and community education coordinator with Disability Network, Wayne County, Detroit. That's in Michigan. I also sit on my state's Developmental Disabilities Council as the vice chair. What my rationale for taking this course is, at one time I taught technology to older adults, and that was very interesting. I learned a lot from the older adults. And so the field that I work at, because we are a Center for Independent Living, as of right now, we don't have a technology class. I don't know if they ever did, but I assist people with resource management, and a lot of times it's through filling out state applications and things of that nature. And they come to me because they don't know how to use the technology or they're scared.
Yeah.
So I'm a big believer that if you give a person a fish, he eats that day, but if you teach them how to fish, they eat all the time. So I want to develop strategies to teach technology to a wider range of individuals.
Beautiful. You are in the right training. Excellent. Are you an Apple user or an Android user?
So I've used both. I primarily use Android, but I do know how to use an Apple.
Okay. Are you you have an Android tablet, a Galaxy tablet?
Not anymore, actually. So both of my tablets are Apple, but I use a laptop.
Okay, so you're an Android phone and a laptop user, but familiar with Apple.
Yes.
Okay, fantastic.
I hope that wasn't too long.
No, that was perfect. Thank you so much, Jamie. And then we have Elliot Carter.
Yeah, thank you. So my name is Elliot. I work at Disability Network Washtenaw Monroe Livingston, which is actually right next door to Jamie, couple counties over. So great to see lots of Michigan folks in this space. Our agency is also Center for Independent Living. We really started getting into the technology space in early 2021, where we got a grant to distribute lots of tablets, Android tablets, and then Chromebooks. So we spent a lot of time sort of getting those out to people. But now that that funding has kind of dried up now that we're not in the early pandemic days anymore. It's more, we're trying to kind of figure out the best ways to re-engage those people and others in the community, kind of to get them to use their device in a way that makes sense for them. We tried to, do little how-to guides that came with the devices. But it was pretty difficult to try and get everybody into the office when we didn't even have an office that was open to the public.
Right.
So yeah, we're just kind of in this transitional period where we're focusing more on the educational piece, but not really sure exactly which directions to take that.
Excellent. And
Yeah.
you've got Chromebooks in your community. Are you personally, what tablet are you bringing to this session? Are you an Apple user, a Chromebook, an Android user?
I have an Android Lenovo tablet as well as a Chromebook tablet. I've used Apple, but not for a long time.
No problem. We have an Android specialist with us as well, so not to worry.
Great.
So
And I
okay.
will say that my colleague Josh Nacella is also here. He works at my agency, but in the Monroe office. So
Excellent. All right. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Josh, you want to just chime in here since he called you in?
Yeah. Sure, go ahead. Might as well. Elliot did most of the speaking for me, but yes, my name is Josh Nocella. I also work for Disability Network, Washtenaw Monroe Livingston. Emphasis on the Monroe part for my as far as my situation is concerned. Sorry, I had these moments where just words didn't want to come out of my mouth for whatever reason.
No problem at all.
But yeah, we've taken, in the past year, we've taken the first steps in getting the computer lab set up here in Monroe. We used to have some very old, borderline obsolete computers that we were working with, but we recently did get some updated laptops. I want to say Chromebooks, even if that's not the necessarily correct model, but it is a decent technological upgrade from what we had. And
Very cool.
all we have I guess currently at the moment we're waiting for some business to come in. We haven't had a lot of people coming in to use our services recently, which is a bit of a disappointment. It's mostly just been it's most of my work thus far has been with one particular consumer who was using our services to keep updated on his job search. It's mostly been pretty quiet here, but I'm hoping that we will get some business drummed up.
Well, we also are going to, thank you, Josh, because we're also going to cover by the time we get to the end, and we'll definitely throw it in here as well, our collaborators, our community collaborators. For example, high schools in Washington, every senior is required to finish a senior project to graduate. And we can partner with them in our transition programs and adult employment agencies and centers for independent living to create, I don't know, little 30-second social media campaign video clips that break the myth about people with disabilities and technology, and things that help bring in your community partners or something else we're going to work on designing together in these weeks together. So I'm really glad you're here, and I love that the two of you have some backup that you're coming as a team. All right, Elise Bergensen.
Hi, Elise Bergerson. I am a community health advocate at Independence Northwest in Naugatuck, Connecticut. My colleague in our IT specialist, Ken DeJesus, is also on the call today. We're also tag teaming.
Excellent.
We had received some ARPA funds, and we have been working with the Connecticut Tech Act. And we are trying to assist people with connecting to broadband. We're helping people troubleshoot technology. Our AT program is kind of sporadic, like Joshua was saying. I have done a large amount of outreach, trying to let people know we're out there. And it seems to be intermittent, the flow. Unfortunately, we don't have a large flow, but Ken has helped numerous people. I've helped people set up online banking. I've worked with people to connect new phones, Android. I myself have Apple phone, iPad. That's what I'm most comfortable with. I think I'm here because I'd like to be more comfortable in explaining to others how to navigate their own computers, phones, instead of being the handover person.
Excellent. Oh, Lisa, I love that. Well, these how-to documents like Andrew just showed you, and some of the other lessons, privacy, how to turn locations off on your photo so hackers can't find your adult children, that kind of stuff. We have tools that we're going to give you, a library of resources. What we find is that if we give it all to you at the beginning, people get overwhelmed and it's hard to find what we're talking about. So we're going to give it to you. We're going to, at the end of each session, send you some things we've talked about. So you can come to the next session saying, hey, I want some more information about this, or do you have something related, or et cetera, et cetera. Right. Glad you're here. So COVID really brought a lot of people into the field, for sure, and getting started and finding your collaborators. Just another note about one of those community collaborators, library systems. Librarians are now teaching technology, and they're a great community gathering place to actually connect with. All right, Adam Kubler, or I'm sorry, wait, Ken DeJesus, because you guys are partners. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to miss that moment.
Don't worry about it. So yes, like Elise mentioned, I'm Ken DeJesus. I also work at Independence Northwest. We're one of the 5 independent living centers in the state of Connecticut, and we're in Naugatuck. We serve the northwestern area. I'm the IT specialist, so I help with any troubleshooting, any computer issues, manage backup, software management. I manage databases where we input data into. I manage reporting and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like Elise, I'm also one of the what we call a mobile tech coach, where we go out into the community and we help teach people how to use the tech they have at home. Like for example, I went out to the community one time and I helped someone set up a new computer, and then we set up Drag and Dictate, which is a software that lets him use all of his programs and all of his apps on his computer completely using his voice, since he doesn't have any use of his arms.
Yeah, beautiful.
Things like that.
Excellent. So you're the IT wizard. This is great to have you here with us. And are you an Apple or an Android user primarily?
I'm primarily an Android user, but I use Windows at home, but we primarily use Macs in the office. So
okay, just so we know who we've got in the room. Thank you, I appreciate that. And I am going to start moving it into I'm sorry, you guys, I'm the one who talked the longest and took up the most space. But we want to make sure we hear from everybody so we know what you're targeting. And then when I get your emails, we're going to send you 2 questions in prep for the next time we meet. Okay. All right. Lena Welch, Disability Rights, North Carolina. Sorry, Adam, I'm coming back to you.
Lena, I work for Disability Rights North Carolina, which is North Carolina's P&A agency. I'm an attorney by training, and so I'm frequently the least knowledgeable person about assistive technology in the rooms that I'm in. And that means I rely on my clients to teach me how they're using it and what they need. And so I wanted to take this opportunity to have a more structured education around assistive technology so I can better advocate for people. And I primarily use Apple products.
All right, brilliant. This is great. Okay, back to you, Bob. I mean you, Adam. Okay, Adam Kubler.
Hi, my name is Adam Kubler. I'm a staff person at the New Jersey Council on Developmental Disabilities. My specific area is employment. My whole history is vocation related. So I was a job coach. I directed a major supported employment program here in New Jersey. What I mainly want to get out of this is that I'm really interested in learning how technology can help folks with IDD access employment opportunities that kind of traditionally have been closed off. Specific example, we have kind of a week, same initiative or state as a model employer initiative in New Jersey, and we're looking to improve that. So we'll hopefully have the opportunity to talk with folks at the government level and at the state level about people actually can do this or can do that. And so we're kind of in that early planning stages of sort of like an employment first, like commission, and SAME is a big part of it. And so I wanted to learn a little bit more about maybe some specifics I can share with some of the folks as examples. And as far as my knowledge, I'm fairly knowledgeable. I ran a program I used to design databases. So I've used everything interchangeably, Apple, Mac, Microsoft. So that's all easy.
Fantastic, Adam. That's great. Glad you're here. Let's see. We are in Amy Moffett.
Good afternoon. My name is Amy Moffett. I'm with the Missouri Adult Brain Injury Program with Department of Health and Senior Services. I've only been in this position a year, and so I'm new to the brain injury community and AT community. So I'm here taking this training to develop my knowledge of what resources are available to take back to my service coordinators who have that direct care with our participants.
Brilliant. Good. We're going to talk about home systems, from screens to home systems kinds of pieces and specific apps. So again, we're also going to utilize the group. When we talk about apps, for example, we break out and first you all talk about the apps that you're using, then we share that out, and then we talk about the ones that we use. So we're going to share some information with each other, and we will gather and disseminate to you the lists of things that we talk about here. Fantastic. All right. I don't know what your name is, but you're labeled OMSLO1.
Yeah, that's my username. My name is Joy Onsler, and I'm with the Ohio Brain Injury Program. And I work to help coordinate resources for people all over the state of Ohio who have sustained brain injuries. And most of my professional career postgraduate school has been with survivors of brain injury. And so I know firsthand that the technology is a game changer in a really positive way. So I am excited to discover a new base of resources that can assist our clients.
Excellent. Joy, what was your last name again?
Omsler.
Thank you. All right, we've got Latyria Johnson. Latyria Johnson?
You was right the first time. It's Latyria.
Latyria.
Yes, I'm Latyria, and I work with Disability Network West Michigan. I'm the independent living specialist. It is a SIL for independent living. And so with that being said, I usually work with individuals and help them become more independent, how they see fit. And actually, back in, I believe it was in October, it was when we started putting a class together once a month for technology courses and stuff like that. So what I've been doing is just helping individuals basically how to set up their computers for them, how they to help them use it, basically accessibility features. I set that up with people. Right now I'm working on showing them how to use Word documents, how to create emails and stuff of that nature. I usually work with a lot of older populations, so that's my biggest goal, is to help as many people, senior individuals, become more comfortable with their devices. A lot of times they prefer not to use it just because they don't know how to work it. They get new devices and don't really touch it because they don't know how to work it. That's why I found recently. So
Yeah. Well, we're really glad you're here. I taught my mom when she was 80 years old how to use an iPad, so we're going to talk. And we find that with everybody, right? It's got to be motivating. We can't start with your hygiene routine, or right. It's got to be.
Yeah.
We're going to make smoothies. We're gonna start with silly films next week for that reason, because we want you to have some fun while you're learning technology. It's important for all people to have that access. All right, Carlo, Pam, Becky, and Joe and Sarah we have left. So Carlo, can you come on, or can you come on with your voice and let us know who you are?
So Carlo did share the chat, and Megan was being very helpful, trying to see if they could do some check on the technology, but he shares, I am a rights advocate for Nevada Disability Advocacy and Law Center. I am here to learn more so I can better assist clients when they are having issues getting AT. What's available out there for folks?
Fantastic. Thank you, Carlo. And it looks like Joe also, will you read Joe's chat?
Yes. Sorry, everyone, my mic is not working. I am Joe Tudela, the program manager for the CNMI AT program. We serve 3 islands. I am an Android user.
Excellent. And Carlo, are you a iPad or Android user? Forgot to ask you. So while you answer that, oh, there you go, Android. Okay, a lot of, Keith is going to have a lot of fun with you guys. Okay, fantastic, Joe. Thank you. And then we've got Pam and Becky here. If you guys can come on screen or send us a chat, either way, whatever works for you.
This is Becky Gustafson. I apologize. I am unexpectedly working at home today. I've got 2 sick kiddos, but didn't want to miss this training, the beginning here. So I work for protection and advocacy in the state of North Dakota. And kind of my goal for the training is to just get a better understanding of some of the successful technology options that are out there for individuals. Through the various platforms. Our agency just recently, we're kind of right in the middle of a pilot project. And the goal of the pilot project is to really look at individuals, making sure that they're living in the most inclusive and independent settings by the use of technology. We're really seeing that as we're exploring some of the other things that other states are doing, that we are really far behind the times. And so we're using this project, the pilot project, as a way to as a platform to kind of make change within the state. So whether that be through waiver dollars or just different programmatic things. So that's kind of the purpose of me being here. And I am a iPad user.
All right. Thanks for joining us, even with sick kids, and I hope everybody feels better soon.
Yes, I do too.
Lots of guns going around. All right, so we have Pam and Sarah. Can you guys, Sarah, hi everybody. I'm Sarah Bermudez, and I'm an Apple user. I'm the program manager for the CNMI DD Council. All right, is that Cincinnati? What's CNMI? Can you spell it out? So sorry. And that's Sarah. And then is that everybody? Yeah. Did we get everybody? Did I miss anybody?
Sorry to interrupt. My name is Lisa Sullivan. I get a message saying the presenter is disabled video, so I can't turn on my video. But I work with Latyra here at Disability Network, West Michigan. I'm excited to see that 3 of our CILs from Michigan are on, so that's cool. I am visually impaired. Hang on, she did ask me to start my video. I'm trying to, after we had oh, it's on. Okay. We had an assistive technology support group before COVID. It kind of quit during COVID because it's kind of hard to teach assistive technology through assistive technology or through video. So I'm just starting that back up because I'm blind, and the people that I know most are. So far, that's pretty much mostly who's come to my assistive technology classes. Latyra, my coworker, goes out into the community and teaches other people about computers, but I'm just here trying to grow our assistive technology group. It's kind of a bring your own device, and we'll muddle through trying to help you figure out how to use it. And
Cool.
I mostly use my iPhone, have an iPad, don't use it a lot. I use Windows for work, and that's about it.
Excellent. So glad you're here. Thank you. And Zara, thanks so much. The Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands. I appreciate. I don't know all the acronyms anymore, right? Just too many to track. Thank you for that. Appreciate it. And Zara, did you tell us if you're an Android or an Apple? You're an Apple user. So Carlo, Joy, did we get you're an Android user? Okay, just so we have the number of users. Andrew, we're going to get heavy on the Android side of things. All right. So what Andrew and I talked about as the session, the goals that we had originally written out for this were to look at some filmmaking next time we meet, because it's a fun way for you to train anybody to onboard about technology. Because as Andrew said, right, we don't want you to you're going to feel like you want to throw it against the rocks and hear it shatter because it's so frustrating. We want you to be having enough fun to get through those moments and also learn enough of some of the actual skills that you're going to carry into every other, use of the technology. So we're going to do filmmaking next time. Bring your devices all rolled up and ready to go. For Androids, you're going to need Filmmaker Pro. I'm going to send you this info, Filmmaker Pro and Funny Faces apps that are both available in the store. Again, we're going to send you that info. The apps you're going to use on iPads are already built in, so that's easy. And then the third session is going to be about lots of apps. The fourth session, we're going to focus on smart homes, different devices to access at home. And then the last session, we're going to focus on implementation tools. So some of that, certainly we can talk about specific goals for individuals, but also agency-wide and statewide, how you're mapping your forward motion, because this is a lot. Technology is a lot for states to onboard about, not just individuals, but also when we talked about the intro, we run into a lot of systemic barriers that to move forward in a very easy way. Big admiration for everybody who's in the room, who's training this technology. Good on you. We all know what some of the barriers are because we share that experience. So looking forward to sharing some tools and some strategies together. And we're going to kick back to ChairNet because we've got a little housekeeping to do before we end today. There you go. There's the email with my email address. If you can make sure you sent me that email I asked for, so we've got the actual who's in the room, your direct email, jennifer@ableops.com is right on the screen there. If you can email me your name and your tech goal, essentially your biggest tech goal, and I'm going to write back. All right, ChairNet, or is it ChairNet or Megan who's going to take us out?
I will pick it up for me, Jennifer. This is Megan. And thanks so much, Jennifer and Andrew, for facilitating that conversation and presentation and getting to know all of our participants today. We're really excited for our next session, which will be at the end of February on the 28th from 1 to 2:30 Eastern time, that is. So on this slide, which these slides will also go out to the group after the session. Thank you, ChairNet, for distributing those. There's a link to our Google group where you can kind of see everything that's been sent out to the listserv for this session in one place at that link. And then if you also need to email the whole group, you can use that email address in the third bullet there. Finally, there's 2 points of contact information on here. You are going to email Jennifer, as she mentioned, email her directly for chiming in on which type of device you're using as well as your tech goals. And then any other questions, if you have questions about logistics or need accommodations for a session, please feel free to email that last email address. But if you contact either of those, it'll get to the right place. So don't worry. Well, I think that should conclude our session for today. Jennifer, Andrew, any final things to mention before we close out?
Andrew?
No, thank you. Really excited to see you all next month and to hear from you all between now and then.
Thanks, Andrew. And again, thank you all for coming today. Looking forward to what we're going to cover together. We will keep shifting as we need to make sure we're covering some usable information for everyone. Stay well.
Bye.
We'll see you
Thank
in February. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.